Picture this. You're dead asleep in the middle of the night, and suddenly, you're waken up by a sound. But it's not just any sound. It's incredibly deep, insanely heavy, and just completely impossible. It honestly feels like the earth itself has just taken a massive breath. This sound rolls right across New York Harbor, literally rattling the windows of Manhattan and sending every single bird in the city lifting into the sky all at once. Now at first, you'd probably think it's an earthquake, right? Or maybe some kind of explosion. But then, you look out into the darkness, and a 150-foot silhouette starts to move. That iconic torch rises. The massive spiked crown physically turns. A giant made of copper and iron takes a breath. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to explore a completely fascinating thought experiment from our source material. The sudden, terrifying, and totally awe-inspiring moment the Statue of Liberty actually comes to life.
So what happens when a symbol comes alive? Okay, let's dive into this, because remember, we are not talking about some magic trick or a CGI movie prop here. The text asks us to imagine a living, watching presence stepping right down into the harbor. She's moving with this incredible motion that looks like solid stone is literally learning how to become muscle. Her face, which has been this symbol of calm and eternity for over a century, suddenly carries this very real, very terrifying intention. And once that happens, nothing about our world ever feels normal again. Because as the source text makes perfectly clear, you can ignore a statue. A living presence? Yeah, you absolutely cannot ignore that. So, what exactly goes down in those chaotic first few minutes?
Well, it's wild. America goes from kind of staring in amusement to being in a total planetary emergency in the literal blink of an eye. Within just one single minute, the entire city freezes. Traffic totally gridlocks every bridge and tunnel, as drivers suddenly realize, wait, the giant green lady in the harbor is actually walking? At the 5-minute mark, the president is being rushed straight into the Situation Room, while the military is desperately screaming for satellite scans. And by 10 minutes, the UN is already demanding a global emergency session. I mean, you have to realize there is just no existing playbook for what to do when a national monument wakes up and decides to head inland.
But here's the crazy part. She doesn't just start aimlessly wandering around. First, she faces south, looking out toward the harbor, and she just listens. Then, her torch flares up, brighter than it's ever been, completely turning the dark water to gold. And then, for exactly 11 seconds, every single radar system in the region totally glitches out. Every ship in the water suddenly loses all navigation, satellites pick up this strange, unexplained pulse, and somewhere deep, deep under the Atlantic, a massive pressure wave just ripples outward. It's a signal. Something or someone down in the deep has actually heard her wake up.
And then, she speaks. Now, you'd probably think it would be a deafening roar, right? But no. Her voice is so low, so vast, it sounds like ancient stone speaking straight through a cathedral. Every single syllable lands like a heavy verdict. And the wild thing is, she doesn't make a threat. She just asks a question. Why have you forgotten me? Wow. That question hits the city way harder than the initial fear did. It's pointed directly at everyone who ever snapped a quick selfie in her shadow, or slapped her image on a postcard, or used her in a political speech without ever once stopping to consider what would happen if the symbol woke up and asked what it actually means anymore.
So naturally, the military swoops in right away. A helicopter comes hovering up near her massive shoulder, blasting "Identify yourself" over a loudspeaker, followed quickly by a very diplomatic "We are trying to help." She turns her head just a fraction, which actually makes the helicopter wobble wildly just from the sheer wake of the movement, and she answers in a voice that sounds like memory itself. She says, "Help who?" It's stunning. She completely bypasses the entire command structure. She isn't asking to be rescued, she's asking about the people.
And this brilliantly illustrates how entirely divided humanity is in its reaction. The contrast here is just unbelievable. Down on the piers, you've got everyday, ordinary citizens dropping to their knees in absolute awe. Families are crying, hugging each other, calling it a literal miracle. But then you look at the systems of power, and it is a totally different story. The financial markets react with sheer, unadulterated terror. They totally collapse for the day. Every flight is instantly grounded. Online conspiracy channels are just exploding. We are basically watching humanity's greatest contradiction playing out right in front of our eyes in real time. By the time the sun actually comes up, she finally reaches the shore. And here is where the panic truly sets in. You see, a living symbol is far, far more unnerving than a destroyed one. We completely understand destruction, right? We know how to process that. What we can't process is life inside of stone. But the thing is, she doesn't start smashing buildings. She's not out here crushing cars, moving with the slow, totally unstoppable pace of something ancient. She just stops at the edge of the harbor, looks deep into the city, and slowly places one giant copper hand right over her heart.
With that massive hand resting over her heart, she delivers a single sentence that is just guaranteed to haunt the world forever. She says, "I have watched your promises become your advertisements." I mean, really consider the weight of that statement. She has been fully conscious, fully aware for over a century, just standing there perfectly still, silently watching the high ideal she was carved to represent be twisted by politicians and sold in a million cheap ad campaigns, all while everyday people just continue to struggle with division and fear.
So what does a living Statue of Liberty actually do with all that profound disappointment? Well, she does something literally no government contingency plan could have ever predicted. She kneels. Her giant copper knees press deep into the edge of the harbor. The water is surging wildly all around her legs. She bows her head in this immense, heavy grief, but, and this is key, she keeps her torch held high. We really need to pause on this visual because a monument kneeling, that is not a sign of failure. It is a profound message. She's kneeling because she is bearing the impossible burden of everything she was ever asked to stand for.
So the crucial point is what she asks next. Carrying all that heavy grief, her voice gets quieter, almost more human. She asks, "Do you still know who you are?" And guys, this isn't some cable news political debate. This is a literal 150-foot mirror placed directly in front of the nation and the entire world. It forces a massive global reflection. She's basically forcing every single person to look deep at themselves and ask if they actually even remember what freedom was supposed to protect in the first place.
And to really hammer this home, she starts asking for names. But she doesn't ask to speak to the president, or generals, or the heads of massive corporations. No. She demands the names of the dock workers, the nurses, the cleaners and teachers, immigrants, refugees, and children. And she stands there and listens to every single name on those lists. Because an awakened symbol of liberty cares entirely about the everyday ordinary people who actually carry the true meaning of the monument, not just the people waving the flags.
Then she starts walking, a single walk straight through the heart of Manhattan. The streets go completely, eerily silent. The only things you can hear are the massive thuds of her footsteps and some distant sirens. She's towering above the skyscrapers like a living, breathing empire of conscience. And as she looks down into the streets, her gaze forces a reckoning. She makes everyone look up and feel deeply, inescapably seen. Now, for some people, being truly seen like that is incredibly comforting. But for others, it is completely unbearable, because you literally cannot hide from it.
And while she's standing there among the concrete and glass, something incredible happens to her torch. It's not just burning with ordinary fire anymore. It morphs into this radiant, almost living light that actually responds to truth and intention. It transforms into this mystical lens, looking right into the human story. It isn't a weapon, far from it. Instead, this powerful light triggers deep, totally forgotten ancestral memories inside the minds of anyone who looks at it.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the specific visions people are experiencing in that radiant light, because they aren't hallucinating, they are remembering. They see an ancestor arriving on an unfamiliar shore, a mother crossing an entire ocean with 2 kids and only one single suitcase, a soldier finally making it home, or a child way off in the future holding someone's hand under that very same torch. It's showing us, plain as day, that freedom is never just some static slogan. It's a living promise, one that has to be actively built, sometimes broken, repaired again, and manually passed on from one generation to the next.
Let's move to and see how this builds as the 7th night falls. This whole global reckoning finally reaches its climax. After spending a week fundamentally changing the entire world's conversation about justice and equality, she does the one thing absolutely no one was prepared for. She slowly, very deliberately, turns around and walks back to Liberty Island. And the moment her massive copper feet touch the ground she stood on for over 100 years, the entire island starts glowing faintly, almost as if it had been waiting for this exact moment all along.
She looks out over the harbor one last time and she delivers this final, incredibly powerful statement. A symbol is only stone until people decide to live by it. And with that, she raises her torch back up. She isn't raising it as a weapon to punish us. She's raising it as an invitation. a profound invitation for humanity to step up and actually protect its own freedom. It's the ultimate reminder that every single generation gets exactly the level of freedom that it is genuinely willing to defend.
Which leaves us staring at this final, absolutely haunting thought from our source material. The question isn't just a fun, wild what-if about a magical statue coming to life anymore. The real question, the one she ultimately leaves hanging in the air over those glittering lights of New York City, is this. What would humanity actually do when freedom itself started looking back? I want you to really think about that and what your own answer would be. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.